Okay, I'm working on my 2002 Dodge Ram 1500 here, and we're going to be taking care of the rear brakes on here today. I've kind of let these go a little too long. We're going to be replacing the rotors and the rear brake pads. I'll show you what I have here. Okay, so we got two new rotors, and then we've got the pads, and then we got the hardware here. And these are Callahan pads I'm using. Okay, we're going to be working on this driver's side, so I just chalked this other rear passenger side here. Now we're using a 7/8. It fits these capped lugs the best, and if you have some that are messed up, you'll just tap it on there the best you can to remove it, and then just make sure that you replace it. I'm going to go ahead and just loosen these up a little bit before we lift it. Okay, I've just got a wooden block there at the axle. We're just going to raise it up just enough to get our wheel up here, and then we'll get a jack stand under the axle over here right behind the tire, and we'll just leave that jack in place there. Okay, now we can just go ahead and finish removing all of our lugs. We're going to start with our caliper here. We'll see if we can't loosen this up a bit. We're going to take a 10mm, get on our bolts. Okay, these shouldn't be very tight. The lower one. We should be able to wiggle this loose. We'll just set it up on top for a moment. See the condition of these. So my front ones are good, but I hadn't got to these, and are already getting into the little tattletale tab there. So definitely these are in pretty bad shape. And so these should have been done something with a long time ago. Pop this old hardware off. Surprisingly, this rotor is not just completely ground up, but it's in bad shape. Really wore down. Okay, we've got a couple of 21mm here and here that we're going to need to take loose. You can see the back of this rotor is horrible. The front didn't look bad, but the back is just gone. So we're going to get our 21. I've got my extended ratchet, and I would have thought that would have been a lot tighter than that. These should be really tight, but these are coming loose real easy. So we're just going to finish removing these two 21s here. This is a really big bolt. I usually torque these down to about 130 foot-pounds. So I'm going to finish loosening that up. Okay, so I've about got this bracket ready to come off here. There's a lower bolt. There's our upper. Well, we'll take a wire brush to those ends where the hardware goes. Okay, before we can pop this rotor off, we've got these little locking clips. They just hold the rotor on basically while you get your wheel on. Keep it still. You can choose to use these or not. They're really kind of a nuisance, but we just have to get it, just kind of pull it out and start spinning it. This little pick tool seems to work better than anything else for me. And once I get it kind of turning, it'll usually come off pretty easy. And don't expect your rotor to come off very easily. Now, you do not want to have your parking brake on. I know it's kind of obvious, but you don't want to have that parking brake on. But you're still going to probably have to tap this thing a little bit to get it to come loose. Now we'll get to work on the lower one. Alright, so we're about to get this one here off. Alright, so yeah, this rotor's not moving. You got your parking pads you'll need to inspect while you're in here. Alright, so I'm going to get my sledge here without getting too awfully rough. That's pretty good. These parking pads are not bad. It's not worth replacing. They would have to be wore down at half of that for me to bother with replacing them. They don't do a whole lot, and rarely do they wear down. Where I've got our new rotor here, you can see how it's got this bore on the inside for the parking pads. See, this does wear some also, but usually not as much. But if this does get wore down, even with new parking pads, you won't have a good brake, emergency brake. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pop our hardware on there. It's pretty tight fit. Okay, I've got my torque wrench set to 130 foot-pounds, and it's going to take quite a bit of force to get it there. Okay, 130, same thing on the top one here. Okay, I'm about to go ahead and get the pad on. I put a little dab here on the contact points where it's going to slide. And this bracket is pretty tight. Sometimes you got to go in at an angle. And sometimes I got to push that out a little bit too. It's just all right. Have to do this a little bit different here. I'm pulling that bottom tab out a little bit. It's not wanting to go in there. Well, try pushing up here. The top's going in fine. The bottom, alright, there we go. It's pretty simple once it goes there. Okay, now I'm just going to get the one on this side. So these are really tight. Usually they're not this tight. Okay, I just lifted up a little bit with the screwdriver and it went on. Alright, so that's looking nice. Alright, I'm going to get my caliper over here now. I've just got a box here. We're going to set it on in a minute. Okay, so we need to go ahead and pop these out and make sure they're clean. Got plenty of grease on them. These are really kind of stubborn. Tell you somebody put anise or something in them there, but it's kind of gotten powdery. Okay, about to get it. Okay, there's the first one. So we're just going to clean it off real good. And we'll take some of our silicone paste. Really like this stuff. And we'll just pop that all back in there. This silicone paste really, you don't have to worry about it. It's actually supposed to condition the rubber. And it seems to work really good. I'm going to pop that back in. We'll make sure that it's popped, you know, on the lips, on the top and the bottom there. Make sure that it's on. No big deal. Okay, so we're just going to pop this one on the other side and do it the same way. Okay, I put a little bit of my grease around this boot, and just to kind of keep this from crinkling and ripping or anything. Usually I'll do that or spray some white lithium, but we got an old pad here. We're getting ready to push this back. I'm going to get my C-clamp. So I got like a 6 or an 8-inch C-clamp here. And we're going to open this thing up a little more. And we're going to get this. What I do is get the back of the C-clamp, if I ever get it opened up enough here. We're going to get on that bolt on the back. That's where it lines up the best. And we're not going to go ahead and start cranking down on this just yet. But we got it ready. Okay, now there's a couple ways you can do this. You see this little bleeder valve on the back here. Maybe you can see it. There's a little boot right here. It doesn't want to come off. That's covering the bleeder. Usually on this it's an 11 millimeter. It's going to take an 11 millimeter to crack it loose. Make sure you're going the right way. You don't want to over tighten these things. I'm going to go ahead and just see if I can crack it loose. Okay. And I've got a drain bottle to basically put this in. Usually I will just push it back into the reservoir up there, but I have changed a lot of this fluid, and I really don't want this old dirty fluid back here going back into it. So we're going to see how dirty it was on that other side. So we're going to just push it back in there. But once I get that cracked loose, I will open it up a little more. Okay, so that's open good. Now we're just going to go ahead and push that fluid back into that bottle there. So you could just push it without doing this back up into the reservoir. You just want to make sure that it's not going to overflow. You see that dark fluid going in there. You see these boots, they try to crinkle up and sometimes they'll rip. I usually always spray lithium grease or something when they're fully extended like that. Good chance they'll try to rip or something, and then you're going to be changing out the whole caliper, and that's not fun. So I want to push this back as far as I can get it. Alright, and that's about as far as it's going to go. Okay, so I'm going to get my 11 and go ahead and tighten the screw back up. You absolutely don't want to get any air. So you don't want to over tighten it. And believe it or not, I did have this clean here at one time. So, I said you can just push it without doing the bleeder screw and just push it back up here. You just want to make sure that it's not going to overflow. So you want to keep a watch on this. And if you want to do it that way, you can take a syringe, you can remove some of the fluid. Not a big deal. So we tighten the bleeder screw, we'll put the cap back on. Okay, we'll go ahead and slip this caliper on, and you want to push these back. Keep those pushed back so they'll pop on there right. So you can see these nubs, we have to push the pins back to clear. Now I didn't have my rotor in place properly, the reason it didn't want to go there. Hence the reason those little clips come in handy. See, now it's going up there no problem because we pushed that piston back. It's fitting fine. We're going to get our bolts in. This is not a big bolt. I wouldn't go more than 15 to 20 foot-pounds. And we'll just want to get that threaded all the way down. You kind of jiggle it, get it going by hand. You want to get it all the way down before you put a wrench on there. Very easy to cross thread. So a little bit of medium Loctite. I'm going to move down to the lower. And don't quite have it. Okay, there we go. Just had to move it just a little bit. Just try to thread these as far as you can by hand. Got our 10 millimeter, just finish snugging that up. So you can pretty much just snug these by feel. So I can get my torque wrench on this one, but I can't on this one up here. But I'm going to go 15 on this lower one down here that I can actually get to. Okay, so I've got this set to 15. I can get to this lower. So you can kind of get the feel of that one and kind of snug your upper one down about the same. The biggest thing is just don't overdo these because you can strip them. If they're not locking, just give it a push. Push down on those tabs. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and just get our wheel back on at this point. Alright, we'll just give these a little bit of a snug as much as we can before we lower it. Okay, so we can get our jack stand out. And go ahead and start lowering this back down. Okay, so I'm going to tighten these to 100 foot-pounds. Now that we got it lowered. We'll just go around a couple times and double check it. Okay, and very important, before we unshock the wheels, we're going to get in here, we're going to crank it up, and we're going to pump up our brakes and make sure they're good and solid. Try not to push it too far at first till it pumps up, builds up pressure. You can actually mess up your master cylinder if it goes way down. Okay, so we'll go out here and we'll check the brake fluid. Okay, and we're right at the max. We're looking good there. Okay, so these things are testing out real good. They feel excellent, and most importantly of all, don't have a grinding noise. And sadly enough, I neglected these rear brakes until I started hearing a noise before I got to it. So anyways, it's not a very difficult project. I said you can use a C-clamp, push that fluid back to your reservoir, or you can bleed it out, just whichever way you want to go about it. But it's not too bad of a project, and we got it done fairly quick. So anyways, I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do so. As always, I invite you to subscribe, and thanks for watching.